Episode 12, The Book That Failed. Part 1 of 3, Death and Resurrection. In 1851, Herman Melville published a novel about a whale. Critics hated it. The public ignored it. It sold fewer than 3,000 copies in his lifetime. Melville died 40 years later, forgotten. Today, that book is called the greatest American novel ever written. This is a story about failure, about how badly we can misjudge genius, and about 30 vocabulary words. Let's start at the beginning. Before Moby-Dick, Herman Melville was famous. His first two novels, Typee and Omoo, were adventure stories set in the South Pacific. They sold well. Critics loved them. Melville was 27 years old and a literary celebrity. Then he got ambitious. He wanted to write something that mattered, something that would last. He spent 18 months on his next project, a story about a whaling captain consumed by revenge, a meditation on God, nature, fate, and obsession. He called it Moby-Dick. The reviews were devastating. Critics didn't just dislike the book, they disparaged it openly, treating it as evidence that Melville had lost his mind. Disparage, to belittle, to speak of with contempt. From Old French parage, meaning rank. To disparage originally meant to marry below your station. The root par means equal, as in peer and parity. This root connects words about status: compare, disparate, prepare. And here's one that might surprise you. Emperor, one who commands as an equal to none. Sales were meager. In his lifetime, Melville earned less than $1,300 from Moby-Dick. About $50,000 in today's money for what would become the most studied American novel ever written. Meager, lacking in quantity, inadequate. His publisher eventually burned the remaining copies to clear warehouse space. As the years passed, Melville grew increasingly despondent. His masterpiece had failed. His later novels failed too. By 1857, he stopped writing fiction entirely. Despondent, in low spirits from loss of hope. He took a job as a customs inspector at the New York docks. For 19 years, he checked cargo manifests, $4 a day. The author of Moby-Dick, stamping papers. Why did critics miss it? Part of the problem was their approach. They gave the book only cursory attention, quick, surface-level readings that missed everything underneath. Cursory, hasty and superficial, not thorough. From the Latin cursor, meaning runner. A cursory reading runs through the text. It doesn't stop, it doesn't dig, and Moby-Dick demands digging. Reviewers also repudiated the novel's ambition. Why were there entire chapters about whale anatomy? Why the digressions into philosophy? Why didn't it just tell a simple adventure story? Repudiate, to reject, to refuse to accept. One British reviewer called it an ill-compounded mixture of romance and matter of fact. Another said Melville had gone mad. They wanted the old Melville. This new version, ambitious, philosophical, difficult, they repudiated completely. Melville died in 1891. His obituary in the New York Times misspelled his name. It seemed his efforts had been entirely futile. Decades of work, thousands of pages, and for what? Obscurity. Futile, pointless, producing no result. He left behind an unpublished manuscript, a novella called Billy Budd. His wife found it in a bread box. But here's where the story turns. 30 years after Melville's death, scholars rediscovered him. The 1920s brought a Melville revival. What happened? Erudite critics, scholars with deep knowledge of literature and philosophy, finally gave the book the attention it deserved. Erudite, having great knowledge, scholarly. From the Latin erudire, meaning to instruct, literally to bring out of roughness. The root rudes means rough or untrained. The same root gives us rude. An erudite person has been polished by learning. This root runs through education itself. Rude, rudiment, erudition. The journey from rudis to eruditus is the journey from ignorance to wisdom. These scholars saw what the 1851 reviewers missed. The density wasn't madness, it was ambition. The digressions weren't failures, they were the point. Where reviewers once disparaged, academics began to venerate. Venerate, to regard with deep respect. to revere. From the Latin venerare, meaning to worship, related to Venus, the goddess of love. To venerate is to hold something sacred. This root connects words about desire and devotion. Venereal, venial, and venom. Love and poison, the same root. Today, scholars don't just respect Moby-Dick, they consider it essential, required reading in universities worldwide. The foundation of American literary studies. The book that failed had been vindicated. Vindicate. To clear from blame, to prove correct. From the Latin vindicare, meaning to claim, to avenge. The root vindex means protector or avenger. This root runs through justice. Vindictive, avenge, revenge, verdict. History had vindicated Melville. The man who died obscure became immortal. Obscure, unknown, not famous, hard to understand. But why? Why did scholars reverse the judgment so completely? What did they see in Moby-Dick that the original readers missed? The answer lies in what the book actually is, and that brings us to part 2. So what makes Moby-Dick the greatest American novel? Not the plot. A man hunts a whale. The whale wins. That's it. The greatness lies elsewhere, in what Melville hid beneath the surface. The novel's meaning is never stated directly. It remains implicit, present but unstated, woven into every chapter without ever being spelled out. From the Latin implicare, meaning to enfold or entangle, the root plicare means to fold. Implicit meaning is folded inside the text. This root runs through language about layering, explicit, unfolded, stated directly. Complicate, fold together. Replicate, fold again. Implicate, fold someone into a situation. All from the same ancient word for folding cloth. What's folded inside Moby-Dick? Start with Shakespeare. Melville was reading King Lear while writing his novel. You can see it everywhere. Captain Ahab speaks in iambic pentameter. His madness echoes Lear's. The ship itself becomes a stage. The Shakespearean influence wasn't subtle. Melville wanted to invoke the greatest tragedies ever written. From the Latin invocare, to call in. The root vocare means to call. This root connects words about speaking and summoning. Vocal, relating to voice. Evoke, to call forth. Provoke, to call forward, to stir up. Advocate, to call toward, to speak for. Vocation, a calling. Revoke, to call back, to cancel. Ahab himself is a contradiction. He's brilliant and insane, charismatic and cruel. His arguments are equivocal. They can be read as heroic defiance or suicidal madness. From the Latin equus, equal, and vocare, to call. Equivocal language calls equally in two directions. It refuses to commit. Notice how roots combine. We just saw vocare in invoke. Here it joins equus, equal, equivocal, calling two ways at once. The symbolism grows stranger. The white whale has been interpreted as God, nature, fate, death, America itself, the unknowable universe. Melville never tells us which is correct. This is where the novel becomes arcane, mysterious knowledge that rewards those who dig for it. From the Latin arcanus, meaning secret, from arca, a chest or box. Arcane knowledge is locked away. This connects to archive, a place where secrets are kept. An ark, a container for sacred things. The Ark of the Covenant was an arca holding mysteries. And then there are the cetology chapters. This is where most readers give up. Melville spends dozens of pages describing whale anatomy, whale hunting techniques, whale oil, whale behavior, a myriad of details that seem to have nothing to do with the story. From the Greek myrias, meaning 10,000, the Greeks used it for any uncountably large number. Critics in 1851 hated these chapters. Why interrupt the adventure with a lecture on whale blubber? They thought Melville was being didactic, teaching when he should be entertaining. From the Greek didaktikos, meaning skilled in teaching. The root is didasko, I teach. The same root gives us autodidact, one who teaches themselves. The cetology chapters seemed incongruous. Technical whaling manuals jammed into a tragedy about obsession. The parts didn't fit together. From the Latin in, not, and congruere, to come together, to agree. Incongruous elements refuse to harmonize. To the 1851 reader, the digressions felt gratuitous, unnecessary additions that served no purpose. From the Latin gratuitus, meaning free, freely given. The root gratis means favor or thanks. A gratuitous act is given without being asked for, which can be generous or unwelcome. The novel's structure felt circuitous, taking the long way around, never getting to the point. From the Latin circuitus, a going around. The root circum means around, and ire means to go. A circuitous route circles before arriving. But here's what the 1920s scholars discovered. The cetology chapters aren't digressions. They're the point. Melville wasn't padding the book. He was building something larger than a story. He was trying to capture everything. Every aspect of whales, whaling, the ocean, the cosmos. The structure that seemed chaotic was actually incisive, cutting precisely to reveal what a conventional novel couldn't. The scholars saw that Melville had invented a new kind of novel. Not a story with digressions, but a meditation that contained a story. The whale wasn't just Ahab's enemy. It was everything humanity cannot capture, cannot name, cannot kill. And the book that tried to contain it had to be equally vast. But why does that make it the great American novel? What does a whale have to do with America? That's part 3. What makes a novel American? In 1851, America was 31 states. The Civil War was 10 years away. The country was expanding westward, building railroads, hunting whales for oil. America was young, ambitious, and convinced of its own destiny. Moby-Dick captured that ambition and questioned it. The Pequod's crew comes from everywhere: Americans, Africans, Pacific Islanders, Europeans. A disparate collection of humanity united by a single mission. Disparate, adjective, fundamentally different, distinct in kind. From the Latin disparare, to separate. The root parare means to prepare or make equal. Disparate things have been separated from equality. They cannot be compared. We saw par earlier with disparage. Both words mark difference, but disparage judges it negatively, while disparate simply observes it. Disparate. Dis plus parare, meaning apart plus to make equal, leading to compare, prepare, separate. That crew is America. Different origins, different languages, different gods, bound together by work and purpose. The ship doesn't just represent America, it exemplifies it, serving as a perfect illustration of the nation's contradictions. Exemplify. Verb. To serve as a typical example of, to illustrate. From the Latin exemplum, meaning a sample or pattern. The root gives us example and exemplary, worthy of imitation. The obsession was pervasive. Not just Ahab's obsession with the whale, America's obsession with conquest, with mastery, with bending nature to human will. Pervasive, adjective, spreading widely throughout, prevalent. From the Latin pervadere, to go through entirely. The root vadere means to go or walk. Pervasive influence walks through everything. This root moves through language. Invade, to walk into. Evade, to walk away from. Pervade, to walk through completely. Pervasive. Per plus vadere, meaning through plus, to go. Leading to invade, evade, pervade. Ahab wanted to kill the whale. America wanted to tame the continent. Both believed that human will could conquer anything. Young writers tried to emulate Melville's ambition, to match his scope, his daring, his willingness to fail spectacularly. Emulate. Verb. To match or surpass by imitation. From the Latin emulare, meaning to rival. To emulate isn't just to copy, it's to compete. The same root gives us emulation and emulus, eager to equal or surpass. There was a tacit understanding among whalers. The sea would kill you if you weren't careful, and sometimes even if you were. Tacit. Adjective. Understood without being stated. Implied. From the Latin tacitus, meaning silent, from tacere, to be silent. Tacit agreements are never spoken aloud. This root runs through silence. Taciturn, habitually silent. Reticent, reluctant to speak, the same quiet. Tacit, tacere, meaning to be silent, leading to taciturn, reticent, tacitly. For Ahab, killing the whale was tantamount to victory over death itself. Equivalent in importance, the same thing. Tantamount, adjective, equivalent in value or effect. From the Latin tantum, so much, and Old French amonter, to amount to. Tantamount, amounting to the same thing. Ahab treated his revenge as sacrosanct, so sacred that any questioning was blasphemy. Sacrosanct, adjective, too important to be interfered with, sacred. From the Latin sacrosanctus, consecrated with religious ceremonies. The roots sacre, sacred, and sanctus, holy, double the sanctity. This root blesses language. Sacred, saint, sanctuary, sanctify, all from the same Latin words for holiness. Sacrosanct combines them for emphasis. Sacrosanct, sacre plus sanctus, meaning sacred plus holy, leading to sacred, saint, sanctuary, sanctify. The first mate, Starbuck, was sagacious, wise enough to see the danger, but not powerful enough to stop it. Sagacious, adjective, having keen judgment, wise. From the Latin sagax, meaning perceptive, related to sagire, to perceive keenly. The root suggests sensing what others miss. This connects to sage, a wise person, sagacity, wisdom, presage, to sense beforehand, to predict. Sagacious, sagir, meaning to perceive, leading to sage, sagacity, presage. The crew was dauntless. They knew the whale could kill them. They went anyway. Dauntless, adjective, showing fearlessness and determination. From the Old French danter, meaning to tame or subdue. The prefix un became daunt and less, unable to be subdued by fear. Today, the scholarship is overwhelming. A plethora of interpretations, religious, political, ecological, psychological, philosophical, plethora, noun, an excess, an overabundance. From the Greek plethora, meaning fullness, from plethion, to be full. Originally a medical term for too much blood in the body, now too much of anything. And so the book that failed became the book that defined America. A novel about a man who couldn't accept limits, written by a man who refused to write small. Herman Melville never knew his book would matter. He died thinking he had wasted his life. He hadn't. Sometimes the world isn't ready for greatness. Sometimes it takes a generation or 3 to recognize what was always there. Melville wrote the great American novel in 1851. America finally read it in 1921, 70 years late, but not too late. If you're preparing for the SAT, subscribe for more episodes. Next time, a different story, different words, same goal, helping you see language the way the test makers do.